Boys and Girls Podcast.
I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas, and we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Demi Tebow is the founder of the Tebow Group. As an entrepreneur, influencer, model, author, and philanthropist, she utilizes her platforms as Miss South Africa and Miss Universe to educate and inspire on a global scale. While traveling the world and representing South Africa on an international stage, she witnessed the universal need for every individual to be heard, loved, and valued. She lends her philanthropic vision to the Tim Tebow Foundation, raising awareness for the fight against human trafficking and supporting children with profound medical needs, among other impactful mission work. You will love our conversation around helping kids find their identity in the right place with our new friend, Demi Tebow. Well, we are so honored to have you on the podcast. We have been talking about this for a long time and hoping to get to meet you. So we're so grateful you would spend the time with us. And we'd love to start with you just sharing a little bit about your story and your family and how you found your way to all the good things you're doing in the world.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me first and foremost. I am so honored to be here and love the work that you guys do and all the ways that you guys inspire and impact people on a daily basis by using your platform. So thank you so much. And congratulations with the book that just launched as well. It's very
Thank
well,
you.
right back at you. We
You
have
too.
children's book cousins, we could call them.
I love it. Hey, we are big dog lovers, and I know you guys are too, or I've just learned that you guys are definitely too. They're such a gift. And sometimes I just don't even think we deserve them.
Amen to
Agreed.
that.
You guys will hear I have a all messed up accent at this point. I grew up in South Africa. That's my home country. And my first language is actually Afrikaans. It sounds a little bit like Dutch German, a little bit of Latin in there. And I've been in the States for about 7-8 years now. And it's been wonderful. I had the honor of getting to represent my home country as the title holder of being Miss South Africa back in 2017. And ultimately, that's what led me to the United States once I won the Miss Universe title, because that's part of your contract. You get to go and compete at Miss Universe. And we actually had not had a Miss Universe winner in 39 years at that point.
Wow.
A very, very big honor, and so grateful for the trust that my home country had in me to represent, our whole nation, and something that I take on with so much pride and just gratitude. But ultimately what happened was you work towards something for such a long time, and a lot of people can teach you and show you how to get to that point, how to reach that title, that achievement, that accolade, that degree, that perfect job. But not a lot of people teach you or talk about what happens when you have to give that back. And that's such a big part of my story. It's what my first book, A Crown That Lost, is based on, is ultimately all the crowns that I chased in my life that did not last. And I have a children's book that was launched recently, Princess Paris Finds Her Purpose. And it's kind of a little bit of a spin-off on my first book with, a big concept of purpose and life, mission, identity, etc. Trying to explain that to little hearts is hard. And
But we're so grateful you are.
children's book was born out of, yes.
Well, let's keep leaning into some of the facts you shared about your story. So growing up in South Africa and dreams about being an entrepreneur, which you have certainly become in so many ways. So we'd love to ask you, what did your family do to help you foster those dreams?
I kind of come from a family of entrepreneurs. Both, my parents were divorced when I was really young, and I grew up in two separate households. My parents also got remarried when I was relatively young, and so I met my step-parents. My stepmom is a clinical neuropsychologist by trade, and so all of the practical tools and tips and tricks that she has taught me throughout my life is something I'm so grateful for and that I still apply till this day. My mom and my dad, they are kind of entrepreneurs by trade. They've always had a business, cultivated a business, always been very, very hard workers. And just, I remember I grew up in a very small town with my mom. And I remember just from like my earliest memories, I would go with her to the farmer's market, where she would sell flower arrangements or all kinds of goods. We grew up in such a small town where you were only allowed to sell things at that market that was home and handmade, like no imported things or pre-made stuff. Like it was all supposed to be, just really raw and authentic. And I think that's one of the areas in my life where I have been inspired by just farm to table, fresh produce, real ingredients. It's actually good for our bodies. It actually nourishes our bodies, allows our bodies to heal itself, to do the thing that it was created to do. And my dad has been somewhat in the corporate world and now a guest house owner, which is kind of like a bed and breakfast as we would know it in the States, and still runs that very successfully today. He actually stepped into that venture throughout my sister's life. I had a little sister that was born with severe special needs, and she really required full-time care. And that was very hard on my dad and my stepmom. And he stepped into that venture in order to be able to somewhat quite literally work from home. So he transformed our home into he turned the garages and every room he possibly could into a guest bedroom. And so I think if I look at my parents and their stories, they have taken very little and leveraged so much of what they could to be able to make a success out of that. And I think that tenacity and that determination, whether that's in life or in, entrepreneurial spirits, is something that I am grateful they cultivated in me through example.
I would imagine they are so incredibly proud of you and all that you're doing, and so excited to be grandparents soon. I bet all of it.
It's the first grandbaby on their side of the family, so everybody's very excited. I know a couple of grandmas and grandpas that's going to be fighting over who feeds and who holds and who gives the bottle first, but that'll be a good fight to have.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
And now a quick break to hear from one of our incredible sponsors who make the podcast available. Okay, my birthday is coming up, and I'm going to make this my healthiest year yet.
Didn't you say that last year?
Yes, and the year before, and every year in my 50s. But this is surely the one.
Well, you know who can help out. Function is an all-in-one health platform that starts with over 100 advanced lab tests covering your entire body: heart, hormones, liver, kidneys, thyroid, autoimmunity, cancer signals, toxins, nutrients, and more.
I'm ready.
I'm excited about the Mastering Stress and Optimizing Hormones tests.
I need help with food and emotions. I have a lot of both, and appetite control.
Your first set of tests helps establish a baseline of your health, giving you a starting point to compare future tests against. This makes it easy to spot changes, even subtle ones, and address them proactively.
It's for all ages and genders. Health is universal. Function Health is for anyone who wants to understand their body better and make informed decisions for a longer, healthier life.
Function currently has a wait list, but they are offering our audience the chance to skip it.
Head to our landing page, functionhealth.com/RBG, to sign up with your credit applied or use code RBG100. This is an exclusive offer we are sharing with our audience, limited to the first 1,000 listeners who use our code. Again, that's $100 credit for new members signing up.
Summer is here.
I love summer. And I spent every summer growing up in the pool, at swimming lessons when I was little, and swim team until I graduated, which is to say my hair had a green tint to it by the time August rolled around every year.
All that chlorine. Don't you wish you'd known about Jolie then? Jolie is a beauty wellness company that purifies the water we shower in for better skin, hair, and overall well-being.
Jolie's filtered showerhead is best in class for removing chlorine and heavy metals. It's the only lab-tested and clinically trialed filtering showerhead on the market.
Clinically proven to reduce hair shedding in 81% of people. Lab-tested to reduce hair frizziness by 40%. Lab-tested to maintain color retention. Lab-tested to protect the hair's surface layer.
Chlorine is added to our water systems to disinfect it and kill bacteria, but chlorine is damaging to our hair and skin and fundamentally causes issues, which I know from all those years in a pool. Jolie fixes this.
Jolie still gives strong water pressure and fits all showers, as the plumbing pipe size is universal.
Jolie will give you your best skin and hair guaranteed. Head to jolieskinco.com/RBG to try it out for yourself with free shipping.
And if you don't like it, you can return your Jolie for a full refund within 60 days. No questions asked.
And now back to the show.
Well, so let's circle back to when you were Miss Universe, and would love to hear about what that was like for you. And through that process, did you have any moments where it felt like, what in the world is happening to me? How did I get here?
Every day pretty much felt that way. I just told you I grew up in a small town where we literally had like farm to table produce and spend my weekends on my friends' parents' farms and helped, herd the cattle and like ride the horse,
Wow.
all the things. It was just such a fun childhood to have that I'm so blessed to have had. But then moving to a city like New York City, quite the shock, quite the difference.
Yes.
From a language perspective, wasn't my first language.
How old were you?
I was 22, I believe, at the time,
Wow.
21, 22 at the time. So a baby, pretty much. Baby just graduated college. And that was definitely a big shock. I think one of my biggest what in the world moments were the night I handed back my title as Miss Universe. Not a lot of people prepared me for that or even encouraged me to think about what that would feel like. And, maybe you're listening and you might just say, gosh, Demi, I do not resonate with that. I do not find anything in common with that. I have never been into pageants or worn a tiara for all that matters. But maybe you've chased that corporate world or that perfect degree, or maybe you're entering a period of retirement, or your children, that's been such a big part of your purpose and your daily mission, is now off to college, and that purpose of the last 18 years is driving themselves and packing their own lunch boxes, and you're kind of faced with that moment of, oh my goodness, where to now? What next? What do I have to show up for when everything I had to show up for the last however many years is no longer there? And that was really oh my goodness, what now? Where am I? What am I doing kind of moment in my life? And I think the reason I felt that way was because of the worth and the value that I had attached to something that was temporary, that was always just meant to be temporary and always just going to be temporary.
Well, let's talk about another chapter within your story. So will you talk a little about meeting Tim, how the two of you met, and also just what it's been like to share so much purpose in helping and making a difference in the world, which the two of you certainly have?
I got to tell you guys just a short little bit about my little sister, but she actually was our matchmaker. Franja was born, we were about 10 and a half years apart, and she was born without a cerebellum, with cerebellar agenesis, and it was where the black and white matter in her brain was severely disrupted, and there were a lot of consequences because of that. But ultimately, it left her with severe special needs and severe disabilities her whole entire life. She also later went on to develop West syndrome, which was just kind of another tragedy. And although she survived that, it left her functioning at the kind of function of a 3-month-old baby for the rest of her life. That required, full-time care from my parents' side, 24-hour assistance, etc. And during Franja's life, we had very little support. My parents lived in a smaller town, not super close to a big city, a lot of opportunities, medical interventions, things to that extent. But my stepmom, being a neuropsychologist, had the knowledge on, how to research and connected with just about every organization she could find, whether that was in Germany or the US, thankfully for technology, to be able to try and help her little girl. And, with all that being said, it was a very lonely season, I feel like, in my family's life, where the church that we had been a part of, I remember the pastor throughout my sister's life reached out only on 2 separate occasions. The weekly barbecues became monthly barbecues, maybe annual barbecues, and eventually just fell away. The Bible studies became less and less and less. And I truly believe that it's not that people didn't care, but because they wanted to help, but they really didn't know how to help perfectly, and therefore alluded to rather doing nothing. And the Tim Tebow Foundation have been serving people just like my little sister for 15 years at this point.
Wow.
And one of the initiatives that they have is called Night to Shine. It is a worldwide celebration for people just like my little sister. And it's a night, the Friday before Valentine's Day, where the red carpet gets rolled out and every honored guest gets crowned the king or the queen of the prom. Not because we want them to just know how loved and valued they are by us as an organization, but most importantly, their maker, who created them in his image as royalty. And that is how he views and sees them. And, the day came where this guy, Tim Tebow, who I had never heard of before, invited my little sister the year I won Miss Universe to Night to Shine. It takes place in 63 countries at the moment in over 800 locations worldwide.
Oh.
Every state in the country. And, this guy who I'd literally never heard of invited my little sister to be a part of such a special night where she was honored, where she was seen, where she was valued, where she was loved and cherished, where our family could be loved and cherished and celebrated. And even though my sister could not physically attend due to her health condition, that's ultimately what connected us. And so I love to joke and say, I met my husband not because he invited me to prom, but because he invited my little sister to prom.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Mm.
Wow. What an amazing thing you all are doing. And we have friends whose families have been given to so richly by those nights
Yes.
and by that event. So thank you. And I
Favorite night of the year. So
Yes.
and our hope in our heart is that it will take place in every single country all around the world, because we would like every single person who's ever been seen as less than or not worthy or not enough to know their worth and their value, their inherent worth and value.
Thank you for sharing that with us and sharing with us about her. It's such a gift to learn. And I want you to know, I think we would both say this, counseling kids all these years, some of the most extraordinary kids we've ever met are siblings of kids with special needs. Because God uses that pain and those circumstances and that empathy and awareness that you develop to grow such amazing things in you. And I would guess it's certainly a part of why you're who you are today and why you're doing all the things you're doing in the world. So really grateful to hear about that.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Sissy, she, Franya truly impacted my life in so many ways. For a big part of my life, she was born when I was about 10, 11 years old, and growing up as a teenager, going through all the things that teenagers go through, I had so many questions that were just left unanswered and that I really struggled with. I think my faith is something that's always been very important to me, and it truly rattled my faith in a really big sense where, I just couldn't get the hold of the purpose behind this. Why is there so much pain? Why is there so much suffering? Why is this allowed in my sister's life? Why does she have to endure such hardship? And looking back now, I don't think I was necessarily wrong for seeking understanding, but I think I was maybe wrong in the type of question I was asking. And I think I was asking why questions all along. And I think what that led to was questioning her purpose for her life, questioning God's purpose for her life. And ultimately what I maybe rather should have asked was where, instead of and asking, Lord, where are you working this together for your good and for your glory? Where can this pain be turned into purpose? Where is there, where is the bigger picture in this? And once I was able to kind of make that mind shift, I think Franya's life started teaching me so much more than I ever could have imagined. And you're so right. One of the things that I'm grateful for Franya's life is the compassion that she taught me, that I probably, most likely, maybe would not have learned elsewhere or on another way. Not that that was easy not that that was easy to go through, but I'm grateful for the compassion that she taught me for a community that I might not have had otherwise.
Well, God is certainly using that through you. And I want to jump to one of the ways he's using it. And I want to talk a little bit about A Crown That Lasts, your first book. And we would love to know more about, you kind of alluded to it, but about what led you to write it and what you hope folks gain as they read it.
that book, looking back, I feel like it's been on shelves for just under a year at this point. And every time I read a chapter or I go back and I page back, I wanted to go, remember, a book process is such a long process. And
Yes.
the manuscript was written about 2 years ago at this point. So sometimes I'm like, oh, which chapter did I tell the story in? And so you have to know yourself. And I'll reread it and I'm like, oh man, I kind of needed to hear that today, speaking to myself. Like I'm giving myself a pep talk. And looking back at this book, I didn't realize it at the time. It was so therapeutic to write. And writing really pushed me to dig a lot deeper. It's easy to maybe write a paragraph, but when you're tasked to write 70,000 words, it forces you to think on a very different level that you might not have thought about things previously. And looking back at that book, I think it was somewhat of a love letter I wrote to myself as a reminder of, the great moments in life, but also the hard moments, the really hard moments that I've faced throughout my life that was not pleasant in the moment and certainly isn't pleasant to think back on. But I think the purpose that came from some of the pain and the trials is something that was so worth it. And like I mentioned earlier, that book, A Crown That Lasts, is really based on all of the crowns in my life that I chased that did not last and that I'm not wearing today. And ultimately, the crowns that did not necessarily have a lasting impact. And looking back at the ways that, I think we can accumulate crowns at last. It's not that chasing that corner office or that title or accolade or achievement is necessarily a bad thing. I actually believe that we have been called to strive for excellence. But those things are temporary and they are not the things that will have an everlasting impact. However, what we do with them have the opportunity to have an everlasting impact. And I truly believe that the impact that we get to have on other people's lives have the opportunity to have an impact that will last for all of eternity.
Thank you for that. We are equally excited to talk about your new children's book. So we love the title. We've got to say it again. Princess Paris Finds Her Purpose.
So cute.
Will you talk about, first off, what was it like writing a children's book versus the one you just mentioned? And also anything we can do to help kids find their purpose?
This Princess Paris Finds Her Purpose was really inspired by A Crown That Lasts. And in this book, Princess Paris loses her crown. It's a little bit of a nod to my personal life story. And Princess Paris is actually our real life Dalmatian. Our Bernese Mountain Dog and Golden Retriever also make a royal appearance.
Great.
Not leave them out. They are her royal guards. And just like in real life, there are her two big brothers. That's always very protective and very loving, very caring. But don't get me wrong, she totally runs the show around here. So hence the nickname Princess Paris. This book was really inspired by a conversation that I had with one of our nieces, and actually our goddaughter, asking me about the first book that I wrote, asking me about, what is A Crown That Lasts? What does purpose mean? What is, what is your life mission? Where do you find identity? Like all these big concepts that were really, really hard to explain to a 4, 5, 6-year-old. And I realized, oh my goodness, Demi, you're going to have to find a way to make this relatable and understandable and digestible to little hearts. And that's where Princess Paris Finds Her Purpose was born. Writing a children's book was actually pretty difficult. It's only 500 to 800 words, but getting such a big concept into a simple version of the language in 500-600 words was a big task. So definitely something that I feel like I never realized would be that hard. And then correlating obviously all the imagery and the illustrations with the words. The manuscript definitely changed a couple of times. Characters definitely changed a couple of times to get it just perfect and to get the message across. But my heart and my hope for this book is truly for it to be a conversation starter between parents and their children, specifically moms and daughters. I think something like purpose is a hard concept to grasp, but I'm grateful for all of the conversations that have been started in my life that have sparked ideas, that have sparked purpose in my life. And I think that's something that I only found and realized later on in my 20s. It's something that I think my husband was very clear on from a very young age. And it's something that I kind of envy about his life, the clear purpose that he had from such a young age, and the way that I could see him just, throughout his life running so clearly towards that. That's a prayer that I have for our own little daughter, that's on the way, that she, whatever that might be, whatever God has called her to, that she'll find that purpose from a very young age and be able to get up every single day with a heart full of hope and passion of what that is, to be able to run towards.
Yes. Well, let's talk about her for a minute longer. When is she expected?
Expected end of June, so she'll be a summer baby. Actually, my birthday is the 28th of June, so who knows? Maybe I'll have a little birthday twin.
That would be fun.
But fun story, growing up in South Africa, the seasons are flipped. So I always had a winter birthday party, but I loved having ice cream cake for birthday cakes. And I always wanted a swimming pool party. And it just didn't quite happen that way. In the middle of the winter, that's just not what you do. So I think, having a summer baby on this side of the world is definitely special. And maybe we'll get to have joint ice cream birthday cakes going forward.
That's beautiful. We'd love to also ask you, are there parts of parenting that you would say you're most looking forward to? And are there any that sound a bit daunting?
It's hard to know what you don't know, right? I think one thing that Tim and I very much agree on is that we know nothing, and we're very willing to be adaptable. So I think that's kind of our maybe our word for the second half of this year is adaptability, and seeking wisdom and wise counsel as much as possible from parents who have walked this road, who have been through it, and asking for advice, asking for help when we don't know the right answer.
Well, we end every episode with something fun and food related. So we move from the substantive to the silly. We move from parenting to food. So we've got a 2-part food question to ask you.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Part 1 is queso or guac, and part 2 is what's your favorite taco?
Oh, okay. Queso or guacamole. Queso does sound really good right now. Although cheese is or dairy's not been my friend during pregnancy, but queso is really good right now. And favorite taco. I usually go for the lettuce cups. I don't know if that counts.
It does
Sure.
count, absolutely.
So I'm a steak girl. What names do I have to give them? Like a specific name? Like I love anything with steak and like a little. I don't know if this is probably not even like very Mexican or Spanish, but like chimichurri, any
Yes.
to that extent. So yes, usually
Yes.
green or the red sauce.
Ooh, great choices.
Sounds delicious.
Demi, thank you for spending time with us. It is just delightful to get to talk with you.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yes.
Really appreciate you guys having me. I am so honored, and congratulations with your book that's on shelves as well. So exciting. And I know that will be so impactful to many little hearts around the country.
Well, right back at you.
Right
So thank
back at
you.
It's a joy to spend time with you.
David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible. Chris Starrett, our engineer,
Our management team at KCH.
and we are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.
If you like the podcast, leave us a great review.